Hey guys, just really wanted to touch on this subject. 'Cause it just irritates me. For all the work I put into my builds and the attention to detail that I put towards my builds and the quality products that I focus on, and then I see something like this come through. So this is a CLX build that a customer brought to me yesterday, complaining that it wouldn't post or he was having trouble getting it going. He sent it back to CLX not one, not twice, but 3 times, and they still couldn't get it right. And this is what drives me nuts. Off the bat, they could have done a better job. Even on the build itself. Just trying to get over my notes because I took some notes on this as well. Because it's absolute. There's so many things wrong with it. I couldn't even keep it all in my head as I was going through it. So to start out, number one, when it posted with a CPU fan header error. So it wouldn't make it past the BIOS because the motherboard says there's no fan plugged into the header. And it's just going to keep you going into the BIOS. That's it. You can't get past that. I mean, if you looked, there is a fan header. But what they did is they plugged the hub for the entire case, PWM hub, into the fan header, and then plugged all the fans into the hub in the back, which is fine. You could do that. It's just all your fans in your system are now going to be operating as the CPU fan, which again, that's not really a big problem. You could do that, and I would have been happier if that was the case. But what they did or didn't do is plug a fan into the first hub connection, which absolutely I don't get. It's labeled what you're supposed to actually plug a fan into the first connection, and that's what's carried over to the motherboard to tell the motherboard, hey, this is the type of fan that's plugged into me. Whereas everything else is plugged, it was plugged into all the other ports of the hub. So the motherboard could not detect that there was a fan even plugged into the fan header for the CPU fan. Hey man, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Just touching on this subject really quick. This is going to be like a short stream, and I'm going to come back and clean up the video a little bit as well and repost it on YouTube. But just a subject before this machine goes out, because I have the customer coming to pick up here in a little bit. Just wanted to talk about it because it just drove me nuts that this is the experience that he was given for $1,800. He paid $1,800, my customer, for this rig from CLX, and had to send it back 3 times. And they still couldn't get it right. So again, it was just, it drove me nuts. And then, okay, so it wouldn't post. We're stuck at the CPU fan error in the BIOS. That was pretty quick to figure out. I just popped the back, saw that the fan wasn't plugged into the first port on the PWM hub on the back, which is what's plugged into the CPU fan header. So all of the fans in the system are running off the CPU fan header. And I left it like that because the motherboard that they used was a Z390 that doesn't have a lot of fan headers to begin with, so I just left it with the hub. They didn't provide him a splitter, and I'm trying to do this as cheaply as possible because he's already spent money on shipping, sending it back to CLX 3 times, which was ridiculous. And anyway, the next problem I ran into, he said when it did post the second time and he was able to get into Windows, the reason why he sent it back the second time was the video card or the display, his screen was showing green lines. So he unplugged it, plugged in his other computer into his monitor, green lines disappeared. So it wasn't the HDMI cable, it wasn't the monitor. I'm pretty confident the reason why it was happening was because they're using a pigtail PCI connection on the graphics card, and this is a RTX 3060. It doesn't really, it's not a really super high, what do you call it? It's not consuming a lot of power, so it doesn't take a lot of power to run it, but there is 2 PCIe connections for this card, and they had it on a pigtail. And Jay's 2 cents, or even Linus Tech Tips, has a couple of really good videos out there about why you don't do that, especially with a higher end card. It's a 3060 Ti. It's probably pulling 75 watts from each of the PCIe connections, and there's 2. And then you also have power being drawn from the PCIe slot. Now the cord, a single cable with a pigtail, is only going to give you the power rated from that cable. And those 2 connections are asking for up to probably 150 watts total from both those connections combined. And the cable might be only providing 75 watts. So you're underpowering your card, and it's not even going to be able to boost or perform where it should be able to. So right there's another problem. So I ended up, the other problem was the power supply they used only has 1 PCIe cable. It was a Thermaltake white 700 watt power supply. So yeah, it's a 700 watt. Sure, it's white certified, which is okay. Not the greatest, but the efficiency is not the greatest there. But the fact that they used a video card that requires 2 PCIe connections and only supplied you a power supply with 1 PCIe cable, and they call themselves a gaming, like a top of the line, super white glove gaming PC integrator, whatever you want to call it. I mean, right here. CLX believes in quality, attention to detail, and giving gamers the ability to choose exactly what they desire. That's not attention to detail. And here's another example. This case that they used is an awesome case. I like this case. The only thing I don't like is how you have to open the side panels, which is up in the front with 2 screws and it's on hinges. But it's by Fantex. It's a beautiful case. I love it. The problem is, with this build, particularly by CLX, is they picked the Z390P Prime, which is an Asus motherboard, and also put addressable RGB fans in here. And for those of you who don't know, that this motherboard does not have a header for addressable RGB. It only has a 12 volt RGB header, not the 5 volt addressable RGB rainbow header. So the fans cannot plug into the motherboard, and you cannot control the RGB lighting using the software from your motherboard, which it's kind of dumb. Now, this case doesn't have an RGB controller, so there's no physical control on the RGB lighting. So they advertised this PC, this build, to be able to have the RGB lighting effects and everything, but they give you no way to control it. That's baffling to me. Motherboard doesn't support the RGB connection, and there's no physical controller on the case. So, what the hell? And this is CLX right on their page about CLX. CLX believes quality, attention to detail. Well, that's not attention to detail. That's called slapping something in a fancy case, calling it a gaming PC with a bigger graphics card, and sending it out without a care in the world. Shame on them. That's crap, in my opinion. And I hope, one day they see this video, because that's dumb. Why would you supply addressable RGB fans, advertise the fact that it's addressable RGB, but then not give the customer the ability, who's paying good money for your build, to change their addressable RGB? I just can't get past that. That's like, that right there was like, so I put a physical controller in here for him, because I'm trying to do this again as cheaply as possible, because he's already spent $1,800 on the build, which in my opinion is a little bit high for this build. With a 3060 Ti, a 9th gen, that was the other thing, 9th generation Intel i7. Fail in their statement, exactly. It was pathetic. But anyway, they have a 9th generation Intel CPU in here, and it's 2021. Intel, he didn't get this build until this year. He ordered it, I think, in 2020 when 10th generation was out. So he should have at least got a 10th generation for this price point, Intel i9. And he didn't. He got a 9th generation i9 9700K, which obviously with the 3090, I'm sorry, the Z390, he's getting a 9th generation CPU, but still, why? Their page right here about CLX and why CLX, why choose, it's sitting here talking about having the best possible components in here. The Z390P is not the best possible or the higher end motherboard. It is a cheaper motherboard. It's for the budget builders that want some growth to their build. But that was during 9th generation for the Z390P. The newer 490 and the 590 have a lot more features on there, and I think they're a lot better than where they were with the 390. But either way, the amount of money that he paid for this build, he didn't get his money's worth. In fact, he had to send this build 3 times to them, and that's packing it up, dropping it off, shipping it, getting it shipped, waiting for who knows how long for them to finally review it and then take care of the problem, hopefully, which they didn't, and then send it back. So that's probably weeks of time, 3 times, to try to repair or solve this issue on a brand new computer that he waited for a long time. So in my opinion, if I was the customer, which I know the customer, and the customer is upset about this, and he said he's never going to see. In fact, I warned him, if I work on this, if I make changes to this computer, you won't have a CLX warranty, or you won't be able to go back to them and send the build back. And he's like, I don't even care. If something breaks, I'm just gonna buy it. If the video card goes out, I'm just gonna go buy one, scalped or not. I don't care. That's how mad he is about the customer service that he received from CLX. So it's kind of disappointing. Anyway, going back to the power supply issue, it was just, the power supply wasn't the right power supply for the build. The video card was slapped into looks like an older model. So all they did was take a model probably from 2019 and then upgrade the video card in it and then start shipping them out. And the addressable RGB wasn't synchronized to the motherboard. There's no way to do that. There's no physical controller on the case. It was kind of just a poor design all around for this build, for this model. And for $1,800, I have a build right now with a 3060 Ti that I just quoted a customer that is around $1,800, but it's got all the latest generation parts. So the RAM, I wanted to mention the RAM and the storage. The RAM in this thing is 2666 megahertz. It's not even 3000 megahertz, or you can't even use XMP profile on this. So your RAM's limited. And then the storage, they used a SATA 2 a SATA 2 SSD and then a hard drive for the storage. And it's not even that big. It's like a 500 gigabyte SSD and a 1 terabyte hard drive. Like, why do you build with hard drive still? And then why do you use a SATA SSD for a build that's in the 1800s? For that price point, you should be using an M.2 in that. But it's just mind-boggling how bad this build is. I mean, the case is, I just love this case. Again, and the RGB, it's great. But the fact that you give all that and then don't give the customer a way to manage the RGB or change the lighting is kind of dumb. And then the fact that you built this build with a 700 watt white power supply and only one PCIe connection, and then pigtail the video card, which causes problems down the road. I don't understand that. And the fact that you use a 9th generation CPU paired with this 3060 Ti, I don't understand that. Why? And then the SATA SSD, I don't understand that. Why? It's 2021. You should, for a build in this price point, you should have an M.2 SSD in here. I've honestly never built with the Aztec cooler, so I have no idea how its performance is, but that's what they've got in there for the water cooling, uh, factory sealed AIO. And it's got a Wi-Fi card in there, and that's about it. But anyway, I ended up replacing the power supply, putting in a physical controller for the RGB, addressable RGB, and then I also added a what else did I do? I reinstalled Windows, reinstalled all the drivers because it was just funky. Like, as soon as I booted it up and got past the CPU fan header error, which I just moved the fan over to the correct spot on the hub, it was just clunky and slow. Like it was bogged down by something. So I ended up just wiping it, reloading it, installing all the latest updates for Windows and all the drivers, and then ended up taking a look at the BIOS, and I'm glad I did, because the BIOS was like 2.5 years old on the motherboard, which is, this computer shipped in 2021, and the BIOS was from like 2.5 years ago. Why? Attention to detail, giving gamers the ability to choose exactly what they desire. It's just, there's so many different things I could say about CLX and how disappointed I am in seeing a company that calls themselves a quality white glove system integrator, and how poor the system was put together and just shipped out the way it is. Not a care in the world, it seemed like. So I don't know which tech did this, but they should be fired, because it's giving CLX a bad name. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to touch on, is the garbage experience that my customer had regarding this build that he paid $1,800 for. It's kind of pathetic. So yeah, if you have any questions, or if you're interested in getting a build built right, just let me know. This isn't really a sales pitch, but I'd be happy to review something if you're looking to buy it at a iBuyPower or CyberPower or CLX, and you have a question on, hey, is this going to be a quality build? I'd be happy to answer any questions. So that's where I'm at right now with CLX. I would give them a 1 star. If this was a quality check review and Linus Tech Tips or somebody else did this review, I'm sure they would have caught all this as well. But I mean, overall, the basics of the computer, the 3060 Ti, it'll game, it'll do what it needs to do, and it'll stay cool, minus the CPU fan header error, which customer had the first time. Sent it back in, fixed, came back, green lines, sent it back in, came back, CPU fan error again. But cooling is good, I'd say. It's got plenty of airflow, great case to build in, great case for airflow. I'd say the quality of the case, the video card, is all that was worth it in this build. And the system is going, like I said, the system's going to game for you, but it's going to be limited for any updates or upgrades that you want to do. For example, you could really only, you're going to be stuck with the 9th generation CPU line for Intel on this build. You won't be able to go to 10th or 11th gen. All they would have had to do really is put a 10th generation CPU in here and a Z490, and you would have been good for many more years than what this thing is going to be good for with a Z390 motherboard in there. But I just wanted to touch on that and share my experience that I had with my customer who brought it to me because they said, I am not going back to CLX. I don't care. Let's just fix the problems, and I'm never going to use their warranty or their service ever again. And I hope, like I said, I hope CLX catches this video, takes a look at it, and learns from it, because there are a lot of dumb mistakes in here that are very easy to resolve to make a better quality product, to make a happier customer. I'm kind of disappointed in CLX and all their Facebook advertising that I see, and I think I've seen like some video reviews, etc. I'm just really disappointed in this build and the result that they created from it. Kind of surprising, but not at the same time. So anyway, guys, happy Tuesday. I am going back to work. I got more builds to build. I got calls to call, support to support. Let me know if you have any questions ever with any builds. I'd be happy to answer questions around quality, build quality, etc. Based on the parts list. And